Hello, in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about the CTEC IT Unit 2 exam and also introduce my set of videos which cover this exam content. CTEC IT is short for Cambridge Technicals, Information Technology. Cambridge Technicals is the brand, and it's often written as CTEC with an H on the end as well, to differentiate it from a BTEC, which is another exam board. This is the exam board OCR that run the Cambridge Technicals. And this particular Unit 2 I'm focused on is based on their 2016 qualification. There is an older version, there'll be a newer version at some point. So like I say, the exam board is OCR, all of the content you need will be on their website. I'll put a link to the particular part in the description. There are loads of units in CTEC IT, and Unit 2 is a mandatory examined unit, meaning you have to do it if you are doing CTEC IT. And I should say at this point, to add more confusion into the different names and the different versions of this qualification, I'm focused on the level 3 version of this qualification. There is a level 2 version, and on OCR's website you've got to be careful about which one you look at, which I think I'll show you actually just to be on the safe side. So level 2 is GCSE level, and my videos don't currently cover this, and this video is not about the level 2 version. Level 3 is what I'm focused on. This is the sort of A-level equivalent, and the units page shows all of the units. For Unit 2, the specification, the document which lists all of the content, is under this units page, which is always very, very slow to load for some reason. And the past papers are under assessment on the side. So you can see there are a fair few different end results from CTEC IT. You need to make sure you know which one you're doing, but all of them have Unit 2 as a mandatory unit. You have to do it no matter the other units you may or may not be doing. The name for Unit 2 is Global Information. It's all about information, of course, and security and laws. It's, I would say, a much narrower scope than Unit 1. Unit 1 crammed in so much content on loads of different IT areas. Unit 2 is, thankfully, a little bit more streamlined. So, like Unit 1, the Unit 2 exam can be sat in either January or May. Make sure you are aware when you're going to be doing this. The paper itself is an hour 30 minutes and 80 marks, like Unit 1. In Unit 1, as you may well have done at this point, Section A is multiple choice. Unit 2 is different. There is no multiple choice section. Section A is based on a pre-release. So you will go into this exam knowing a little bit roughly about some of the questions which will come up in Section A. Section B is sort of a standard exam which is unknown, you can't really predict it, just short and longer answers on the exam topics. There will be a longer marker, usually 10 marks, extended response question where you've got to make sure your spelling, punctuation and grammar and your clarity are strong. Now that pre-release is something you're going to need to think about. It's released to teachers 2 months before the exam date roughly. So in January that'll be November, and for the May exam that'll be March, roughly speaking. And it's going to be usually a couple of pages about a made up organisation or company or something along those lines, often with quite a silly name I've found. So it's important you study this. It will give you some prompts at the end, some things they want you to focus on in particular. These should come up in the exam in some form. Not everything in the wider brief will come up. A lot of it is just context and things you've just got to think about. It is important you study this pre-release, and by this I mean making sure you understand how this business would work, so thinking about how this would work as if it was a real organisation. And this isn't a half an hour job. You need to be really studying this carefully and picking out the bits which relate to the specification. Some bits are just context, just information, and other bits clearly relate very strongly to a part of a specification. So it's your job to connect those dots. Obviously, you've got to know the content in the first place, and for the points OCR specifically suggests you research, create some notes, again based on the exam content you've hopefully learned by this point. So Section A on this pre-release is 50% roughly of the paper, and so that second 50% is unknown and is just on the exam content. I think some people, expect the entire paper to be on this pre-release, and it's not, it's only half. So you may or may not know this already, the grading system is confusing partly because there are so many different end qualifications which are worth different amounts. But in the exam unit, so Unit 1 and Unit 2, there are 4 grades you can get. R is near pass, then you've got a pass, merit and distinction. Now once you certify, once you have all your units together and you finish your qualification, you can get one of 4 grades: pass, merit, distinction and distinction star. To get a distinction star in a 5-unit qualification, you need to get a distinction in one of the 2 exam units, and you can get a merit in the other one. And just as a note, you are allowed to resit Unit 2 twice. You may not have time to do this. You may only get a chance to resit it once, or maybe even not at all. It will depend on how your school or college are approaching things. Now, grade boundaries change every year, and so you can look up just by Googling Cambridge Technical's grade boundaries 2022, whatever year you want to pick. They do change a little bit, but generally for Unit 2 in the past, it's been about sort of 55 to 60% for a distinction. And for a pass, it's been usually between 25 to 30%. Now, the fact that 60% has usually meant you'd get a distinction in Unit 2 shows the exam is quite tricky. There are lots of areas where you may drop marks, but that doesn't mean you can get complacent. You've still got to learn all of the content. I tend to think kind of low grade boundaries are really good incentives, because if you know the content in a really strong way and you practice the content, you're going to stand a really good chance of getting a distinction. Now, speaking of the content, and the last main thing I'll say in this video, there are 6 learning objectives in Unit 2, LO 1 to 6. My videos cover all of these, so I've got a playlist, if you don't know, which has got videos on all of these 6 areas. Lots of videos. It's a long playlist. It'll take a long time to watch back to back, but it contains all of the information you've got to know. It's a lot of information. This is an A-level equivalent qualification, and so you'd expect a lot of things to learn about. Do not get lazy. You've got to know that specification and all the content pretty much inside out if you want to get those top grades. And this right-hand column shows you roughly what to focus on. So you can see LO2 is on average the biggest part of this paper, whereas LO5 might not be really there at all. I think this is useful if you are running out of time to revise, but bear in mind that if you've got time to revise and time to learn this content, you should still learn all of it. Don't focus too much on these percentages. For my videos, I'd recommend you watch and make some notes in your own words. Don't just copy what I've said or what I'm writing on my slides. Test yourself, get somebody else to test you on the content, and do past papers and practice these in exam conditions. Don't spend time memorizing answers, but do look at the mark schemes to try and figure out how many marks you would get and where you can improve. So if you've got the exam coming up, I wish you best of luck and all the best.